49ers beat reporter for NBC Sports California, Jennifer Lee Chan, our guest. Jennifer, how are you this afternoon?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Are you counting snaps at OTAs and seeing who's getting the reps with the number 1 team and number 2 team and everything else?
Unfortunately, that was what was jotted down in my notepad yesterday at practice. Oh God, it's too early, but I know everybody wants to know who's doing what, where, and when. So we do it. Otherwise, there's no reference point to bounce back to. So yes, I did.
JLC, how you be? I wanted to ask you about the defensive coordinator spot, because D'Amico Ryans, we know, did a great job. When Saleh left, there was a lot of talk about D'Amico Ryans. What's he going to do? And there's no talk about Steve Wilks. What does Steve Wilks bring to the job, and why are the 49ers obviously so confident that he's going to be an excellent fit as a coordinator?
I think what's great about Steve Wilks is he's looking at this job where you don't want to change what isn't broken. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But what he is really good at is the secondary. So his specialty is defensive backs and safeties, whereas D'Amico Ryans' specialty was linebackers because he was obviously a linebacker. So I think what Steve Wilks is going to do for these young guys in the secondary is really help them up their game. And, I think the defensive line is going to handle itself with Javon Hargrave coming to the group. And Steve Wilks knows that the defensive line is just going to get after quarterbacks. So now if you've got the secondary getting takeaways, I think that just rounds out your defense so much better. And I think they will get more turnovers with him as a defensive coordinator, just the technique that he's been teaching them. We haven't spoken to a ton of guys yet, but I'm excited to hear what they think of him. I know he's very, very well respected in the building, and I expect to see an improvement in the defensive backs and safeties group.
And don't think we're not coming back for more quarterback questions, Jennifer. All right, we're not.
I never doubted that.
We're not done with that. But since we're on the defensive side, you mentioned Steve Wilks in the secondary. We talk a lot about the quarterback position battle, but they got a couple position battles and got to figure out exactly who's slotting in where on the defensive side of the ball, and specifically in that secondary. Do they not?
Yeah. So Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward, obviously has that starting spot locked down. The way Deommodore Lenoir played last year, I would think that he's going to start out training camp as the guy opposite of Charvarius Ward. But the guys they brought in, there's some interesting guys. So they're going to look for somebody who's going to play kind of that nickelback guy. Jimmy Ward obviously is not with the team anymore. He's in Houston with D'Amico Ryans. So there's an open spot there. It'll be interesting to see who takes it over. Yesterday at practice, we saw Isaiah Oliver, who used to play for the Atlanta Falcons. Steve Wilks was very complimentary of him, said he's one of the best nickelbacks in the league. So I wouldn't be surprised if that guy takes over at that spot, because it is so important, stopping the run and also in coverage. So I think that's a guy to keep an eye on. Also yesterday, Darrell Luter had a great day too. He had some pass breakups and he was very involved. It's hard to say, who's going to be where, because there are a lot of players that did not participate yesterday. And I think there are a lot that will not participate during OTAs, but they're there for, the individual drills and, just to get classroom work done. But I think Isaiah Oliver is a guy who's definitely going to be gearing up for that starting role at nickelback.
Jennifer, I know the answer to this question hinges on a lot of things that are really unknowable at this point. So I understand that. But that said, does Trey Lance have a legitimate chance to be the number 1 quarterback this season? And do you think that in his mind, Trey Lance has a legitimate shot to be number 1?
I think definitely in his mind, he has a chance to do it. I mean, he is ready to compete. He has a ton of respect for Brock Purdy and what he was able to do. But as far as I think what Shanahan and John Lynch are concerned, how they are concerned, is that Brock Purdy has been on the field and has proven it. Trey Lance just hasn't had a chance to do it on the field. Week 1 and week 2 of 2022, the first week was in a torrential downpour. The second game is when he got hurt. So he just doesn't have a lot of game film. He doesn't have a lot of experience. And while, maybe he lights it up during training camp, the known quantity is Brock Purdy. So, they've said it throughout the offseason. Brock Purdy is a leader in the clubhouse. So I believe as long as he's healthy and he has some good practices before week 1, I think it'll be Brock Purdy's job to lose, I think, which is what Kittle said during the offseason. But if Trey Lance proves that he can throw the long ball to, if Danny Gray can improve during training camp and Trey Lance and he have a really good connection during those deep passes and they can stretch out the offense, that's where maybe Brock Purdy doesn't have as big of a, big of a hold on the offense. So it remains to be seen, but I think anything is possible at this point.
Jennifer Lee Chan, 49ers beat reporter for NBC Sports, our guest here on Cattles and Ramie. Leading up to OTAs, there seemed to be a lot of buzz and chatter of, Sam Darnold, he might be, they might. Do you think there's any fire to that smoke, or what do you think is with the Sam Darnold hype machine that we saw fire up leading up to OTAs?
You might be asking the wrong person because I'm a USC alum. So I've always been a big fan of Sam Darnold, but obviously he hasn't been in the best situation. You look at the way the 49ers have been able to develop quarterbacks and get them into the best position possible. This is the best situation Sam Darnold has been in his entire NFL career. He's got Brian Griese as a quarterbacks coach. Kyle Shanahan is, the offensive guru of, the NFL. So to have those two guys helping him learn an offense that only benefits him because he's got such a huge supporting cast around him. I'm like, so many quarterbacks can come in and do a really good job because you've got George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk, and Trent Williams on the line. It's set up for success. So I think Sam Darnold, if he gets a chance, will do a great job. But that's the thing. Will he get a chance? Because he's got two guys as of right now kind of in front of him. So, whether he's able to even see the field or not is going to be an interesting thing. But I think he's got a ton of talent. It's just whether he can do it on the field or not, because the way Sam Darnold has played, he's got a great arm. He can, he's got so much arm talent, but he's also had to play hero ball. Even back at USC, he didn't have a huge supporting cast around him. He had some great targets to throw to, but he had to, he put a lot of it on his own shoulders. So to be in a situation where he doesn't have to do everything, it'll be interesting to see if he can actually do that, or if he reverts back to, trying to make plays where, he might be able to do it instead of going for the 100%, maybe the check down or maybe the sure thing. So that's an interesting part of Sam Darnold's future.
By the way, Jennifer, belated congratulations on Bronny deciding to go to USC. I know you must have been excited about that. But putting the quarterbacks,
that's big news.
Yeah, I know. Putting quarterbacks aside again for just a moment, if I were to ask you what non-quarterback has the most to prove in OTAs and also in camp, because I know OTAs, there's not that much to it, but what non-QB has the most to prove in OTAs and in camp this year with the Niners, who would come to mind?
Oh, wow. There's so many guys who have, locked down those starting roles. I would say it's got to be the one guy I'm kind of looking at is Drake Jackson. A guy who was taken pretty high in the 22 draft. And just, he started out of the gate strong, but I think for a lot of rookies that aren't Nick Bosa, coming into the league, you don't play football throughout, when your senior season ends or when you declare for the draft. It's all about preparation for the draft. It's all about pro days and the combine and then interviews and traveling all over. And then you're not really practicing football. So I think he came into the season not realizing how much work and how hard it was going to be on his body in that first year of the NFL. And you look at college players, they only played 12 games, maybe 13. So when you have to play 3 preseason games and 17 regular season games and then the playoffs, that's 22, 23 games. That's way more than they've ever played in their entire lives. So I think that hit Drake Jackson. We haven't spoken to him, but I think that's, a lot of the rookies say the rookie wall is real. And I think it hit him pretty hard, or he hit it pretty hard. So I expect him to be ready. He looked a little bit bulkier yesterday. Hard to tell because he had sweatpants and kind of a baggy shirt on, but he did look like he put on some weight. That's what Steve Wilkes said he did. So he's got high expectations. Kind of the bar is set pretty high for him. So that's the guy to watch during training camp.
And where did he go to school?
Oh, some really big school down in Southern California.
Before we let you go real quick, Jennifer Lee Chan of NBC Sports California, I guess here for just a couple more minutes. You mentioned Nick Bosa. He's not at OTAs, but that's normal with him. He works out in private with his dad and his brother. But are we going to see an extension for Nick Bosa this offseason?
I think definitely they will do it. I would expect it to be, more towards training camp.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Nick Bosa will show up for the mandatory minicamp. I don't think he'll do anything on the field, but I believe he's come in before. He just flies out, watches some film, checks in. They kind of do the, hey, how's it going? And I think, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan need to say, hey, this is what's happening. We've talked to your agent. I think, one-on-one contact is always better than having it go through a third party. I think it's definitely going to be done. Both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, through the several times we spoke to them to the offseason, that was my question. I'm like, where are you guys with Nick Bosa? And they're like, it's going to happen. We're impatient too. It's going to happen. But usually those things happen for the Niners. I mean, historically, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, it all happened kind of right at the beginning of training camp, maybe week 1 or week 2.
That's Jennifer Lee Chan, 49ers beat reporter for NBC Sports California, and our guest for the last few minutes here on Cattles and Ramie. Really appreciate the time and the insight, Jennifer. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
No problem. One thing, it is June 1st. Eric Armstead is having his gala, and it raises money for his Armstead project, which is up in Sacramento, which is up there. So take a look at Eric Armstead's social media. It's got information on there, and I know it's close to home for you guys. So
Absolutely.
Just a great event that does so much for the community of Sacramento.
Awesome. Glad to help get the word out on that. Appreciate it, Jennifer. We'll talk again soon.